And we are live. Hello, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Am I coming through loud and clear? I am indeed. Hello. How is everyone on this fine Thursday evening? Got a lot to discuss tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and dive right into it. Time permitting, we will do a Q&A toward the end of the stream. So if you have a question for Mr. Divoff, either hold those until the end of the stream or please feel free to send those via a super chat. That way YouTube keeps a record of those questions and I can easily refer to them. And of course, that helps out the channel as well. So without further ado, my guest for tonight's Bloodstream is an incredibly talented actor. His career spans nearly 5 decades, and to date he has 113 credits to his name, according to IMDb. He is the one and only Andrew Divoff. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, Justin. Thanks so much for having me here, and thanks for that great introduction, brother. I appreciate that.
You're very, very welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. I do want to give a big shout out to our mutual friend Dominic Mancini at Full Empire Promotions, who helped make this happen. So go check out fullempirepromotions.com. Indeed.
Thank you, Dom.
Yes, indeed. So we've got a lively chat already. We've got a lot of people here who are excited to see you. I know as soon as I announced this, I had a lot of really excited people who, I don't know. I guess they want to make wishes. I told them not to. I said, don't. You'll regret it. But they're here. So
that's so cool. That's so cool. I appreciate them being here, man. And I hope I get to answer all the questions and fill in the blanks if there are any for people.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to do with this Bloodstream is play a recurring game of Andrew Divoff Fact or Fiction. So, fact or fiction, you were born in Venezuela.
I was. Fact.
Very cool. Was your love of movies born there too?
It was obviously Spanish being the language in Venezuela was my first language. Mom was Irish, Dad was Russian. They split up, divorced when I was quite young. So I never, though I speak Russian now, I was never able to speak it growing up. But yes, my love of really Americana and American movies and television shows was born there in Venezuela. Combat, I remember, was a constant. We'd always see that, and then of course there was. Oh goodness, there were the cowboy movies. Gary Cooper was a worldwide hero at that time, and sort of the strong, quiet American type. Mm-hmm. And anytime I would have to say Gary Cooper for the longest time was my favorite actor. Anytime any of his work would come up, I would make sure to watch it. And in Venezuela, the broadcast system was quite a bit more diminutive, shall we say, than what we're used to even in those times. We're talking about the 60s. But so there would maybe be 1 or 2 movies a week. There would be television series playing, say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and minimal news. And then there was that damned, that off the air thing, and the sound, But yes, I grew up on American heroes speaking dubbed Spanish. It was a trip.
Was there, I know was there one particular actor or movie that made you go, that's what I'd like to do?
Not really until much later in my life. And it was sort of a series of events of sort of odd events. I was always a very shy kid, very introverted. And so as a kid, that never entered my mind. Later when I was in high school, I remember I would go to Mom and Pop would conveniently be out of town at somebody's home, and so there was going to be a party. And at that party, I got into the habit of doing prank stunts. I mean, if there were stairs, I would roll down the stairs, and so I was really at first more interested in stunt work, being a stuntman, and the fact that going out on the edge, taking chances, made people feel viscerally, and I received that sort of almost like being on stage. I mean, you receive that back and forth, that sort of that chemistry, that electricity. Was obvious to me even as a high school kid. So it really started first with the stunts, and then when I got to say my junior year, having transferred, having come over from Barcelona now at this time, I had attended university over there and transferred to a school out east, to Georgetown University in Washington D.C. And I took a sabbatical. By the way, I'm still on sabbatical. Thinking about it. But I came out. My pop was retiring, as it turns out. He was coming up from Venezuela and was going to retire in California. And he loved sailing, loved doing his deep sea diving, and so Malibu seemed like the place for him. That's where he ended up, and so I kind of I helped him move, and by help I mean I helped myself to the couch in Malibu and to hanging out and to kind of a way of life that was very different for me. So and then I started driving a limo to sort of I was curious about acting and getting into an acting class. Cold reading. I started with Laura Rose, and that was in North Hollywood. And I would go there. I would memorize my scenes. I was so very excited to get to class every week, and I thought, wow. I remember my first audition ever was at a little place called La Caña Theater, and that was right on Vine and Camarillo in North Hollywood, and it was a musical. I can't sing to save my life or anybody else's life, not even the life of my pets, which is horrible. So I won't. My coach said, she said, you'll go in there, it'll be a great experience. You won't get the job. And I thought, cool, I won't get the job. Good, because I can't sing. It's a musical. Well, I got the job, and so all of a sudden, I mean, when it came to final rehearsals and the whole thing, the producer was so cool. He came up and he said, Andrew, wow, you're going to do well with the acting. You're a wonderful actor, but you can't sing, and so you need to go. You need to leave. Get the hell out. Not so that was I can't tell you what relief I felt. Had I been more sort of paying attention, and had I been less sort of, I guess, I don't know, selfish, self-absorbed, I guess, just thinking that whatever, I would have gone and gotten a coach. I think that's and what I would tell any young actor: make yourself prepared. If you're not prepared, if you think you're not prepared, make yourself prepared. There are plenty of coaches out there who can teach you how to dance, how to sing, certainly how to act. I mean, there are cold readings and that sort of thing. And cold readings being the thing that you do in a room, even to this day, every now and then, with producers present. And so that was my first experience, and it really came out of just a curiosity. Let's see what could possibly happen.
Well, isn't it interesting that you say that you were, because I've heard from a lot of actors on streams and off, they all have one thing in common, or most of them, I should say, have one thing in common, and that's either an unhappy childhood, or they were the kid that was the introvert, the quiet, the shy person, and now you're in a musical. How does what I mean? How does that happen?
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and now I'm in a musical, and so really going back to the thing about the curiosity, and the curiosity was was not only about what did I think I could do with it. It was also about, wow, could I actually get up in front of a room, just really for my classes for the cold reading, and do this and elicit emotions, sadness, happiness. Could I do comedy? And again, to get that immediate reaction, that visceral reaction from the crowd was such a, man. I like my sweets. You can bring me just about any cake. Nothing would top that. Nothing tops that. That is the icing on the cake for me. And I mean, not only with the acting. I mean, even with the. I'm very competitive, and so I like to win, and winning, in the sense of achieving something that you set your mind to, you set as a goal, and having that come to pass, even perhaps not as bigly as you might have hoped, but having it come to pass is a very it's just a beautiful thing, and it makes it sort of makes one feel kind of I don't know, again, like you've accomplished something.
Right, yeah. Fact or fiction? You can speak 9 different languages.
Fiction.
Oh.
I can speak 8.
How many?
8.
8 different languages.
I did speak 9, but I forgot one.
Oh.
I forgot, and really it's and here again this sort of hubris, really, and thinking, so that 9th language, by the way, was Romanian. I knew I was going to go do a movie. It was a full moon production. It was Oblivion 1 and 2. We did over there, and I remember knowing that I was going to go over there, and I remember having heard that Romanian is the oldest living language that is the closest to Roman, to Latin, and so I was excited about that, and so I started studying. I got I believe it was a Berlitz book at that time. I got the book and I started learning just pleasantry phrases, thank you, where's the bathroom, where's the restaurant, that sort of thing. By the time I got there, I was conversing, and I made a point to converse with the crew and to have them help me, and I was even getting into crazy, man. I mean, I was getting into the subjunctive, which is essentially what would happen if, would I, were I, etc. And so things sort of imagining situations, which is kind of tricky in languages. That's when you start to get into really being able to express yourself, getting out of the present tense. Anyway, so I was reading newspapers and I was doing interviews in Romanian, and then having come back to the States about 2+ years later, 3 years gone by, I had some friends who were Romanian. I'd make a point of practicing with them, and then another 5 years went by, and I went to my local high school, and I was doing the sort of the kids get together, we all go into the hall, and I talk about what I do, and it was so trippy. This kid gets up, and he says to me, and this was an assembly for various schools, not only the high school but an elementary school. So this kid, who probably 11, 12 years old, stands up and asks me a question in Romanian. I answered in Romanian, and then he says, "Hey man, that's not what I asked you." And I thought, okay then, oh man, just got busted by an 11-year-old. I thought, holy crap! First thing I did that night was go home and take that off my resume, and then sit back in my chair and think, whoa man, you actually forgot a language. You forgot a language. And that, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned, but I had to face that fact. So anyway, yeah. 9 is fiction, 8 is fact.
Okay. What do you think created this fascination with language?
A chip on my shoulder, no question about it. Well, look, I mean, kids are tough. They can be, pretty tough on an outsider. The razzing and the bullying and all of that. And so, having grown up in Venezuela, uh, I was what was referred to as a monsieur, which is a Latinized version of the French word monsieur. And and so any foreigner they would call a monsieur, and so I paid my dues there as a kid growing up till I was about 10 years old, and then coming to the States, apparently I had a really thick accent, and I had nicknames, and I was bullied quite a bit, and so I said, you know what, man, enough of that. So I really honed in on the languages. I said, okay, well, if language is so important, and it is important. It is one of the most important things. Without language, you and I wouldn't be talking, and we wouldn't be speaking about films, plays, television. That is all ultimately language. And as I say in my pirate voice, God bless the writers, and bless them indeed. And so I just obsessed on languages. I said, okay, if that is the currency, I'm gonna have a pocket full of coins. And so I just started obsessing on languages, and pretty soon in high school, I literally, in order to pass to the next grade, I would take a language, because everything else, I mean, to the detriment of everything else, history, math, wow. But I could talk my way out of stuff in a few languages.
Mm, very cool. One of your earliest roles was as Doc in Neon Maniacs, and I love Neon Maniacs. I adore this movie with all of my heart.
It's wonderful.
How did you get cast as Doc in Neon Maniacs?
I was basically, wow. It was kind of like I was put up against a wall with, I think, 15, maybe 20 other actors, and they kind of walked down and so there were what, six different characters in makeup, I believe. Um, and they walked past me, and they said, "Yeah, this guy." And I think, being honest, I think these were zombified characters, and I honestly think I so the ruddy complexion, I think, had a lot to do with it. I had a bad case of acne as a kid, and in high school and so forth, and the remnants of it are literally written on my face. And so I think that was part of their sort of honing in, sort of triangulating and saying, yeah, that's the face we want to use, want to work with.
That's the face we want to zombify, right? Fact or fiction? You were not paid for your role as Doc in Neon Maniacs.
Fact, baby, fact.
Did they just refuse to pay you, or did the check bounce, or what was? I
No,
think.
it was we were, by we, I mean young actors, aspiring actors, were all sort of up and coming, and so there was a casting company called Crystal Blue Casting. Uh, I love Crystal Blue in the song. This part, not so much. And there was a lot of that. There were times when actors wouldn't get paid. So much so that I mean to I mean here we go. So again, hubris, uh, pretentiousness, which I was a pretentious, and perhaps can be still. So I got really pissed off about that, and I get a call from Crystal, I think, who was part of Crystal Blue Casting, and says, "There's this director. He wants to see you. He's seen a headshot of you, and he wants to meet you." And I hung up on her. She called again. They really want to meet you for this movie. And I said, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in working with you guys ever again. Thank you very much. And she says, can I at least tell you what the movie is? I said, no. And I hung up. Come to find out, it was Walter Hill, and it was Warriors. Oh, dude, man. When I heard that, when I found that out, many years later, before, so this would have been probably maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years. This particular series set of events. Anyway, when I knew that I was going to go in for another 48 hours, and I knew Mr. Hill was directing and writing along with John Fasano, I took that same picture that they had sent him, that Crystal Blue Casting had sent him, and I pinned it on his door. I was on the lot at Paramount doing my one day on Hunt for Red October, and I asked around. I said, where is Mr. Hill's office? Because he had an office on Paramount at that time. And they told me, and I took that picture over and I pinned it to his door. And I no note, nothing. I just pinned it to his door, and he remembered that. He reminded me of that when we met, and I did the audition. Finally, I was lucky enough to go in to do the audition. The audition came, by the way, it came the same night as I left for Berlin, and that was November 11 of 1989. And we know what happened after that. So it's kind of cool. I got sick as a dog. I got sick as a dog on the plane, having gotten off the plane. I don't know, some flu symptoms, whatever. And come to find out, who knew? Beer didn't help it. I tried. Beer wasn't the remedy. But it was so surreal to be sitting on the western side of Germany, outside the Brandenburg Gate, having a beer, and watching this stream of people coming in on one side, and they were all in line, very orderly, coming in, and then on the other side, on the side where the bar was, where I was sitting. And coincidentally with a good friend, William Forsythe. Somebody had dropped out of that trip, said, you want to go? And I said, man, I can't. I got this audition. He goes, dude, it's a red eye. And I said, okay, we'll see. So anyways, so on the other side, they were walking back into East Berlin with microwaves, with televisions, with record players, vinyl players. And it was kind of surreal. It was its own truly trip. I'm glad I made that trip. I truly am to this day. Audition, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what a way to celebrate getting cast in another 48 hours.
I didn't even know until the next day. I was totally sick, and I got the word that I got the job, man. And I thought, man, I wanted to scream. I was so damn sick. I could barely get out of bed. But I was obviously so very happy to hear that. And what a trip, man. What a great show to work on. I must say, I must give Mr. Murphy big props. He was a gentleman, truly a gentleman, and kept the set, happy. He wasn't cracking up. He wasn't cracking people up all the time. He was concentrated, and bravo for him. And of course, the sort of the tide had changed, if you will. Whereas Mr. Nolte had been the top card, it was now Mr. Murphy. It was an interesting thing to be a part of. And will you excuse me for a second?
Sure.
Good evening, three.
I'll mute him so that we don't interrupt his conversation. We don't overhear his conversation. Give him some privacy. How's everybody doing tonight? How's everybody liking the conversation so far? How's it going, Roberts? Hello, Jinx. Hello, Ernest. Hey, Loki Vision. How are you doing? Wishmaster Jr. Hello. Mike Barrett. How's it going? Pablo. Hello. Guy Incognito. How's it going? Hey, Shannon. Hey, Jilly. How are you? Okay, I think he's okay. I think we're good. All right.
Thanks for your patience. Appreciate that, Justin. Sorry.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So, what is it like shoving a gun in Eddie Murphy's face?
I remember 3 letters, TMJ. I was told, don't shove it in my jaw quite so hard. And I was, a neophyte. I was nervous, and I'm thinking, oh, man, try to remember that, man. Remember that. And that was, of course, the scene with Tisha Campbell. And I do remember him, at one point he turned to me and he says, please, don't shove the gun so hard in my face. So how was it? I was nerve-wracked, and again, this is Eddie Murphy. I mean, it was a trip. Of course, part of the story, part of the part of the script. But I mean, holy crap! I mean, I felt so bad about that, and I apologized even to him at the rap party. He goes, "Oh, you still thinking about that?" Well, yeah. So I was. But,
and Walter Hill, you got to work with Walter Hill. What was he like to work with as a director?
Absolutely wonderful. He was truly a director's director. Never screamed. Never heard him raise his voice. Always knew what he wanted. Relied on those that he had brought aboard to make his film better. His cinematographer, of course, his writer, and had them with him, traveling troops with him. Literally as if going into battle to make this thing happen. Moving a whole crew of, had to be, close to 150 people, all told. Moving around. We started out in, started out in Baker Dumont Dunes. That was the scene out in the desert at that little shack, that little bar. And just to see him, you'd see him sitting in a chair and just sort of thinking. My favorite picture of him is actually taken from behind him, and he's looking at this beautiful dune which seems to spread forever. I mean, you wouldn't want to first of all, you wouldn't want to walk through the desert just to get to where this thing was, and then you certainly wouldn't want to walk that. But he was thinking, and he literally had his hand on his hat. Wore this cool hat, Indiana Jones type hat, and you could see that he was thinking. And when I asked him, I brought that to him later, several years later, asked him to sign it, and while I showed it to him, first thing he did is he lifted the phone and he asked his assistant to come in and showed her the picture and said, I want a copy of that. And so that he hadn't seen it. That was kind of funny, that he hadn't. But it was wonderful. I still think Walter is visionary, and the way he handles action is not all about. I mean, there's humanity, and it's a human story as well. I mean, look at Hard Times, man. Holy crap, Charlie Bronson. I mean, how amazing with that. One story, because I asked him about that. I said, what was it like for you working with Charlie Bronson at that time? And he said, you know what? He was pretty darn amazing. He said he was in that kind of shape at 53 years old is when he filmed that, and would every time they'd cut, he'd go smoke a cigarette, and so every time he was fighting, he'd throw 3 punches. Then he'd have to, you're gonna sit back and take a breath, but he was a beautiful guy. Not very coincidentally, I got to drive him a couple of times, and his beautiful wife. and the first time that I picked him up at the airport in a limo, I could tell he had his eye on me. He was eagle-eyeing me. He was watching me, but he wasn't. And I was trying to figure out what is that about. Did he think I was the guy that he caught like breaking into his garage to steal some stuff? Or I wasn't quite sure what the look was about, but it was intense.
Mm.
And then I realized what it was. It was simply that he wanted to make sure that I opened the door for his lovely wife. And I did. And I would have done it anyway. But so I walked there, and as soon as I opened the door, I sort of caught him because I turned to him to sort of gesture him inside. And he looked at me and he smiled. He just smiled. It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Very, very quiet, strong. Again, the American, the strong, quiet type, you know, pure American, beautiful, awesome. Beautiful human.
That's awesome. It's always good to hear that, you know, your favorite filmmakers and stuff are also pretty decent people, you know?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
Would you say, because I mean, at this point, you've worked with people like Nick Nolte, you've worked with people, you know, you said you did like what, one day on
Hunt for Red October.
Hunt for Red October.
Right.
But did you get to work with Connery or with any of the big names that were in that film?
No, but I had a very, very trippy thing. So John McTiernan, the director, was one of the first to use a monitor. Monitors were never seen before then, and so because the airplane that I was on, that Fox. Bear Fox, I believe it was, airplane, a Russian airplane, a Soviet airplane. It was so cramped in there. It was really the size of that airplane. I remember somebody coming to me, an assistant, saying, "Hey, they're showing your scene on the monitor. Would you like to see it?" And I said, "On the what?" And they said, "On the monitor. There's like a TV screen over there, and you can actually watch that scene replayed." I go, "You're kidding me, man." And I go, yeah, I want to watch that. And so he walks me over, and there was a crowd around it. Like, I mean, keep in mind, this was the first time that we had seen monitors, and sure enough, man, here it was, and people wanted to get, and so it, like moths to a flame, literally. And so everybody's in there, and so I'm kind of peeking over a couple of shoulders, and I'm looking, and oh, whoa, there I am, and so I start to elbow the person to my left out of the way, and I'm trying to get a peek, and this person is pretty stern, and they're not moving, and so I elbow a little harder, and I finally just kind of squeeze in there, and I bump, and I hear this beautiful accent. I won't ruin it for you, that we all know, and this gentleman turns to Mr. McTiernan and says, "What are you selling this Russian?" And it was Mr. Connery. It was Mr. Connery. And I looked over and I go, "Oh, holy shit." And here I am trying to push him out of the way, man. And I'm going, all I could do is say, "Mr. Connery." And I put my hand out to shake as he shook my hand, and then turned and walked away. But a gentleman. And I thought to myself, "You asshole. You dipshit, man. You, oh, man. Pay attention, dude."
Oh, I love that story.
That's kind of trippy, isn't it?
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't imagine, like, you know, bumping Sean Connery and him being like, oh.
Yeah. You want to something else that ties into the limo, and it's so cool. So many very cool things happened with the limo driving. One of my steady clients was Michael Caine, another one of my favorite actors.
Oh yeah.
And so we both remember Man Who Would Be King, and that Sean Connery and Michael Caine had worked in that, and they were friends. They were dear friends. I remember driving across Santa Monica, going into Cannon, I believe it was, might have been Rodeo, and in the crosswalks, wouldn't you know, is Sean Connery. He's crossing, and so Mr. Caine says, "Stop the car, Andrew." And he gets out in the crosswalks, and him and Mr. Connery are having this great, hugs and discussion, and nobody honked. Everybody was extremely patient, and everybody was like, "Whoa, whoa, in a crosswalks, these guys are meeting again, and giving each other hugs, and how's the family and the wife, kids good, okay, cool, great seeing you, brother. Got back in the car, and I mean, I was agog, of course.
Yeah.
But so was the rest of the town, man, who happened to be, driving by or stopped at this moment. That was so cool. That was cool.
Did you do any other, I don't want to say odd jobs, but gigs that while you were early in your career, while you were auditioning, just to kind of make ends meet? Any other interesting jobs?
One of the most interesting jobs that I've had was when I was in Washington D.C. I was a courier. I would curry passports and documents and things, get them stamped, and make sure they got out to Dulles Airport. And that, I mean, that was such a wonder. It was so cool to be able to go into all of these embassies, and where you normally have to go through severe, especially at that time the People's Republic of China embassy, the Soviet embassy. And of course, going to the Soviet embassy would give me a chance to practice my Russian, and so I got to know people, and those severe security checks became less so, and it was I just remember that very fondly. I remember I had a Honda 350 and no helmet, although it was the law, you had to have a helmet, and I remember driving that stuff, riding that stuff out to Dulles, which was about from where I was, it was about an hour with the traffic and so forth. But scooting down in between, that was a very cool job. Other jobs, I just I realized that in order for me to be able to study for my auditions and do the work I needed to do, get it done and do it, completely and to my own satisfaction, I would have to have a job where I could, pick my hours.
Right.
And that's why the limousine driving was perfect for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's step into Stephen King country, shall we?
Yes.
Were you a fan of Stephen King prior to Graveyard Shift?
I must say I certainly, of course, was aware of Mr. King. I was not as much of a fan as I should have been. Again, paying attention and knowing this kind of, but I had always, I mean, Carrie. When that came out, I was a fan. I was a Gone fan. I do remember meeting him at the catering table. It was very intense, very quiet. What does a neophyte actor say to Mr. King? Again, a writer, and you by now have gleaned that I appreciate writers, and just because, as I say again, we wouldn't be here were it not for them. Very intense, very quiet. I introduced myself, said it was a pleasure to meet him, and he very quietly looked over and he nodded, said, very softly said, "Thank you," and that was it. And we continued with our lunch, and that was it. Was so cool to see him come down. The whole town knew that. They said, his property. It's the one with the wrought iron with the bats on the black wrought iron fence there, and so
because you shot that in Bangor, right?
Yes, we did, and that added, I think, a lot to the movie, to this sort of oppressive sort of darkness and humidity, and black flies. Flies, dude. Whoa.
Yeah.
What the hell is this thing at night, flying around at night, biting the hell out of me? But what a beautiful place. The streams, lakes. I'm very much into, living in the mountains, very much into the forests and the lakes and the streams and rivers. So it was a wonderful place to be for that. But what a great cast.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen Mocht and I to this day are friends, and I love him. He's a great guy. Beautiful family man. and brings the intensity, brings it. I man, I love watching him. I love watching him. I just I have nothing but big respect for Steven. So
Yeah. And his accent in Graveyard Shift is just phenomenal.
yes, it is.
Phenomenal.
Yes, it is.
You also worked with Brad Dourif in that, who of course is the horror royalty. How was did you spend any time with Brad Dourif?
Wonderful. Very little time. But wonderful. We would every now we would coincide at the lunch table. So that was that was really I other it's funny. I ran into him at a couple of parties, and he was very subdued, very quiet. I think shy as well, a bit shy, but what an amazing talent. What intensity sort of just glows inside of that man.
Oh
Yeah.
Incredibly talented guy. Yeah. Were you a horror fan growing up?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Lon Chaney, and the fact that Mr. Chaney did his own makeup. I mean the love of doing this, of treating other people to this horror was obvious with Mr. Chaney, and I loved I did my Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney, all of the classic Universal horror. I was not allowed to watch horror when I was a kid. I had to sneak it. I had to wake up late at night on the weekends and sneak down. And I have a feeling that Mom knew. I have a feeling, and let it go. Yes, long way of saying I am indeed a horror fan, and still to this day, I love the first few in the Saw series. I think it's interesting that, and I think Wishmaster in an interesting way sort of pushed the envelope. The CG and the practical effects, melding those, pushed it to a level and paid great tribute to Harryhausen. Going back, using some of his tricks, if you will, in quotations. But it's interesting that these days that there is a lot of the CG, but a good horror flick doesn't, as we sort of see and are lucky enough to be treated to these films where for instance, where the CG is there, but it's not the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't take away from it. So, yeah.
Well, fact or fiction? Your favorite role to date is Louise Callie in Toy Soldiers.
It is. Gosh, it's faction. It's faction.
Okay.
So, yes, but for a very special reason.
Okay.
Remember, I told you that I came out to help my father. Sort of, this was his retirement. I helped him move into his place, and I remember how disappointed he was when he found out that I had taken time off from school. His dream for me would have been to come visit me at Georgetown, and when I wasn't teaching linguistics or a language, and he just didn't understand. I showed him the first couple of things, including a doc, and so I just remember that he had this pained look on his face about when I said, no, I'm going to pursue this. I'm going to stick with it. Well, I remember inviting him to the premiere of Toy Soldiers, and oh my goodness, man! And as you know, the Toy Soldiers has its own father-son story there with Louis Callie and his dad, and how Louis is doing everything for his dad, and I think that sunk in a little bit with my own father, but also the fact that it was a supporting role and a big supporting role. I just remember that I was asked to stay behind a little bit in the premiere, and we were going to go to dinner. Um, and I remember coming outside after answering a few questions and meeting some people and shaking hands and thanking people for the kind words. I remember coming out and looking for my father, and then I see him, and he had this look on his face like okay, oh, and I understood it to mean he gets it now. It's okay. You know, he and I'm so happy that he got to be part of that. And for that reason, I say that Toy Soldiers is uh, among my favorite roles, and that's why I call it faction. Because I mean, goodness, I mean, I must tell you. Of course, there's the Jin slash Nathaniel. There is Patchy. There is Mikhail Bakunin from Lost. I love that guy. I love that guy. I mean, I so I've been so fortunate, and I think I've been fortunate because of the languages that I speak. Here again, going back to that, and that's coming around, and the help that it's been. As a matter of fact, when one of the first comments I got about Toy Soldiers was my agent transmitted it to me and said, "Well, um, they think you are a wonderful actor and you did wonderfully in Toy Soldiers, but you're going to have a hard time getting roles that aren't accented like that." And he would tell them, "No, no, no, no. He speaks English, perfectly good English." And so it was kind of an odd sort of a thing to hear that. I thought, well, that's funny, that's cute, because I mean I had done other things. I had done certainly plenty of television up to that time, and so for them and I think until recently, until all of this COVID cabin sickness, cabin fever, now that we're kind of just getting beyond, hopefully, knock on some wood, knock on wood, yeah, knock on wood, baby. Um, hopefully, hopefully we get past all of this, and I'm sorry, I'm rambling on. Forgive me, Justin.
No, that's an excellent story about your father, and I mean he got to see, like, oh, so he's kind of my boy's on the big screen and he's doing good. Maybe it was worth it taking the time off, right?
Yeah, it was, and I again, I'm just thankful for the accents and the languages. I don't believe my career would have been as broad as it's been. And you mentioned 113, or yeah, 113.
Yep.
That's wow, that's surprising. That's surprising. Been a while since I've been on the IMDb, but I'm wow, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Well, was there any trepidation on your part or on the part of your representation that you may get typecast as just, not just the guy with the accents, but he's the villain?
Yeah. Um. So there was never any on my part. There may have been with my agents. I mean, they did mention to me, we'd kind of like to find you something a little lighter, and not to be cruel. Um, but I did play two good guys, um, and frankly, brother, gosh, I've never been so unchallenged and bored in my acting career. So I do tend to gravitate toward the bad guy, toward the villain.
The bad guys are just more fun to play, right?
They truly are, man. They truly are.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you scold a kitty cat if you're a good guy? You never see a good guy doing that, but a bad guy does it and then pets the kitty cat. Oh, you love him. Look, he's got a heart. He's a bad guy, but he's got a heart. So it's trippy. That dichotomy is really trippy.
Well, and it looked like you were having it looked like everybody was really having a great time in Toy Soldiers. You had a great, more, I don't want to say older cast, but I mean, you had Arlie Ermey,
yes,
Louis Gossett Jr., and then you had Sean Astin and Will Wheaton,
Keith
Coogan. I heard the younger guys were a little uh, they could be little pranksters every now and again on
Oh
the set.
yeah, oh yeah. They were pranksters, and yeah, hey, they were kids. They were, and they were all in their own right. They were, they were coming into their own, if you will.
Were you
Uh,
the victim of any pranks on the set?
not the victim, but I and I got a little grouchy, grumpy, and I would approach Mr. Petrie and say that I didn't feel in certain scenes that I was getting the sort of feedback that would have been, for instance, what I'm getting in Sean's face, and I mean there was the intensity, and I looking back, I see that it was just, I mean, how dare I try to tell another actor how to approach their role, and in a sense that is what I was doing, and we know that Sean did a beautiful job with the role, and so I kind of had to just chill,
Yeah.
and realize it, but I was just kind of a, from morning to night, I was a live wire, man. I was basically living in Luis's skin, and always thinking like Luis. Even when I went into a room or a restaurant, and where would he sit? What would bother him? What would make him nervous? What might he notice that maybe would normally go unnoticed? So I think I was just perhaps a little too intense. Now, did it translate into the character? Did we see it come through in the role? I hope so. I hope so.
Would you say you're a method actor, or how do you approach the
I, I
craft of acting?
I would not. I would not say that I'm a method actor. Um, I would say I love to prepare. I do of course, as I believe all humans do. We rely on our memories. We rely on our experiences. Those shape us. They inform us. And so yes, in that sense, there is an overlap there. But that strict method, no. No, I wouldn't call myself that. I wouldn't presume to call myself that.
Mm.
I have friends. I know actors. I've seen them who are, in fact, would call themselves method actors, and they do wonderful work. Wonderful work. Um, it is just, it is a box within which I can't fit.
It seems very exhausting to be that character
Mhm.
all day, every day, off the set, on the set. You're just too in, and it seems like you would just piss everybody off around you too.
No
You know,
doubt, no doubt, and that must happen quite a bit, and that's a tough burden to bear, because we all have psyches, we all have hearts, minds, souls, spirits, and yes, of course, it's hard for that actor to carry that. I was going to say pull it off. That's not the appropriate term. To carry that,
right?
that weight is a tough thing. Is a tough thing, and it's tough on everybody around. And so this is why what I mean. I don't often use adjectives that are bellicose, in the sense of a battle. A battle is its own thing, and those who have actually been to battle uh, are to be revered and commended. But this intensity, it wears. It does
Yeah,
wear.
yeah, I can imagine. I'd like to do kind of like a little medley thing here and touch on just a couple of things,
Are
because
we going to be singing, you and I?
no,
No.
no, not that, not that kind of medley.
Uh,
But just kind of a just for the sake of time, and because 113 credits, there's no way we can really touch on each one. But there were little things I wanted to ask you about certain specific roles. Um, you did an episode of Briscoe County Jr. with Bruce Campbell. He's another, of course, horror icon.
wonderful,
How
wonderful.
was how was Mr. Campbell to work
It
with?
was he was absolutely wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Um, And Joe Pilato, incidentally, was also in that same episode. Land Pirates, I believe it was called. Yes, we. First thing I remember coming in, first thing was work on your sword fight. You're gonna have a big sword fight with Mr. Campbell. Work on it. First thing off the plane, and guess who was my sword coach? Tom Morga.
Oh,
Morga, bro. And I recently saw him. I ran into him in Phoenix. I was so happy to see him, man. He's always been such a humble, stout person.
right.
And we reminisced a bit. Wonderful to see him again. But I'll tell you what, he taught me beautifully, and that sword fight. I love those things. I love the sword fights. And working with Bruce, with Mr. Campbell was wonderful, and he was so gracious about just giving me time, making sure, because of course along with the sword fight was this copious amount of blah blah, as I refer to it, and to make both things work at once was a big challenge, and Mr. Campbell was very patient with me, so never
That's cool.
forget that.
That's cool. You mentioned Joe Pilato. I was going to bring him up. I love Joe Pilato. Of course, he's unfortunately no longer with us. You worked with him. I don't know if you didn't share any scenes with him in Wishmaster, but he was in Wishmaster.
He was indeed. He was he drove the rig that drops the crate.
That releases you.
Yeah.
So, how was Joe to work with?
He's wonderful, and I had spent a lot of time with him at a lot of these conventions. Wonderful guy, beautiful guy, great sense of humor, very sort of wily. I mean, had this sort of this sort of devil's grin when he knew he was pulling one over on you. Beautiful guy.
Yeah. In '94, you worked with Lou Diamond Phillips on Dangerous Touch. I think Lou Diamond Phillips is a really underrated actor, but you got to work with him as an actor and as a director. How was he as an actor and as a director?
He was wonderful. He was wonderful. I'm going to share a story with you, a sad story. So at that time, when I was doing that movie, Dangerous Touch, I believe was the title. Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember that me and 9 other acting buddies, we owned a club, a bar in Hollywood, the erstwhile Oscar's Wine Bar, and had turned into the Sunset Social Club. And that was our club. We would hang out there, and everybody and anybody came through there. Lou loved making a habit of coming in and getting behind the bar and serving. He was absolutely wonderful and giving of his time and spending time with people. There was a scene in Dangerous Touch where he puts a gun to me. I believe, I'm not recalling now. I believe it was in my mouth or in my forehead. It was quite, it was quite aggressive.
Yeah.
And we were breaking. We weren't going to shoot that part until after lunch. And I said, I'm going to, and I said to Lou, I said, Brother Lou, I'm not going to take lunch. I'm going to be right here. And if you don't mind, I am going to hold the 38 to my chest. Show me that it is empty. Show me it's clear, then we're good. Give it to me. I will hold it here. I don't mind if your prop guy has his lunch and watches me. But that's the way I'd like to do this. And he kind of, I think he was a bit affronted. Didn't show it, but I said, oh, okay, no problem. So there I was. I spent that 45 minutes on my back on the concrete. They were kind enough to bring me a furniture pad, and they spread it there. I lay on that and had a nice little nap basically like this, holding the gun right to my chest. Um, 2 nights after that scene, I walked into the Sunset Social Club. Lou was behind the bar, and he comes over and he says, brother, says, I'm so sorry, man. I understand. I understand. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, didn't you hear? And I said, no, hear what? And he said, Brandon Lee was killed on a set a couple of nights earlier. And I met Brandon one time. I went back to my acting class. At any rate, so Lou was beautiful. He gave me a hug and he says, I understand. I didn't know where you were coming from, and I got a little upset, but man, and so he shared the story, and I met Brandon, and props to Lou for doing that. He's a mensch. He's truly a mensch. Beautiful human. So I met Brandon. I went back to say hello to my acting coach, Milton Katselas, whom I absolutely loved and adored as a coach. He was magic. It was magic to be in his class and see people working there and do their, including my friend William Forsythe, uh, Miss Pfeiffer, Michelle Pfeiffer, and myriad other names you would know. And I remember I just went in there to say hello and how you doing, Milton? Everything good? Okay, take care. I'm walking back to my car in the parking lot, and I hear this voice. He says, excuse me. And I turned around. I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, you're Andrew Divoff. I said, yes, I am. And he said, my name's Brandon Lee, and I just wanted to tell you that I saw your work in another 48 hours, and I loved it. And I thought, oh, wow. I said, thank you, man. That's so very kind. And we talked a little bit, how long you've been in the class and so forth, and what were you doing? And he says, well, I got something coming up. I've got a role coming up, and I just wanted to make sure I'm prepared. And anyway, I just wanted to say that to you. And I said, thank you so much, Brandon. It was beautiful to meet you. So that's how that story comes around.
Mm. You know, that, I mean, the tragedy of Brandon Lee is something that, or his tragic death is something that, I mean, just even though it's been so many years ago, it still just carries such a weight. It's still so powerful. I don't know. It's yeah.
And I have, I'll say, Justin, I have, to my shame, forgotten the name of the actor whose fate, excuse me, it was to send that bullet toppling toward Brandon, and have nothing but love for him. Send love and for the memory. I cannot imagine how heavy that was a life, how heavy a thing that was to bear.
I don't remember the actor's name, but I know that it haunted him for many, many years, to the point where he did not want to do anything associated with prop guns. He didn't want them anywhere near him. He didn't want to touch them. So it was definitely something that I'm sure is still with him to this day. That would be very difficult very difficult. Mm. You know, acting seems like such a nomadic existence. And some other actors that I've spoken with, they've made it sound like, and I don't know if this is your experience or not, where you have to be so singularly focused on making it, to the detriment of literally just about everything else in your life, as far as relationships, friendships. You have to be singularly focused on the next gig. Has that kind of been your experience with acting? Would you say acting's a very nomadic kind of thing?
Answer the first part. No, it has not been my experience, and I haven't taken that sort of tack if you will. And perhaps some would argue, well, that's your problem, dude. Um, but no, I do know that relationships, and I've been through it myself. Relationships suffer
Mhm.
um, in this field. It is tough on relationships, even when the couple is in the same biz. Um, Nomadic. I love nomads, baby. I love nomads, and I love being nomadic. I love being nomadic. I, you know, I would actually, I would love to travel with those nomadic tribes who cross the Sahara on camels, and just their theater is at night, man. The stars, the moon, the stories around the fire.
Mhm.
Um, I love the nomadic life. I must say, I uh, I get I get a little uh, antsy before I start any project, and as they say, use it. So I use it, but then I get to sit back on an airplane and look out the window, and you know look at the beautiful mountains and the beautiful countryside that we traverse to get to our job. Then I get to be there and experience a little bit of that culture.
Mhm.
Uh, wow. I mean, what could possibly be wrong with that? I love that. I love that aspect of it.
Mhm.
I just and to be especially. Can you imagine? I mean, when I mentioned going to Romania, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
going to a place I had never been with a language that was completely foreign to me, until I got into it a little bit. And such a cool thing. It just gets my creative juices going. It really does.
Very cool. 97 was a big year for you. You appeared in Air Force One alongside one of my all-time favorite actors, and that's Gary Oldman.
Oh,
I love freaking Gary Oldman. But Glenn Close is in there. Harrison Ford, of course, is in there. What was that experience like?
wonderful, wonderful. I have to tell you that um, firstly, I'm thinking. So my first day out at the airport. and, and, okay, I see this beautiful big old airplane, and it says Air Force One on it. It's the real thing. So we're filming us getting aboard, and apropos of your question, I look at Gary, I look at the other guys on the team, Ilya Baskin. Uh, I just and I'm thinking to myself, who would let these guys on an airplane? But okay, okay. So that was my first, my mind. And by the way, Ilya Volokh, a friend of mine, another wonderful actor, Russian actor, Ukrainian actually. Um, I made lifelong friends, and still we don't communicate as much as we should. But I'll tell you what, Gary Oldman, what a beautiful human he was. And I
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I was, for all intents and purposes, Justin, for real, I was a glorified extra. On that, I could. They knew that I could do my stunts, and I'll do a piss poor a sort of an accent, and actually, it's not that bad. Of Mr. Peterson, of Wolfgang Peterson, when I went into his office, and actors, right? I'm thinking, oh man, we're going to be talking about making this role bigger. I just know it. And so I get in the room, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, okay, I got to have some talking points, some bullet points for this guy, for the character, for Basilev. And I get in there, and I said, well, I really love the. Nice to meet you, and so I do my little thing about, gosh, yeah. I mean, I do stunts, and I do my acting, and I'm just so excited about this character. I just wish, and I was trying to get into more scenes with Mr. Oldman, and so Mr. Peterson looks at me and he says, "Yeah, so we have a very important fight with Harrison Ford. Do you think you can do it?" And I said, yeah, I think I could do that. And I'm thinking to myself, well, couldn't I do the fight and be in more scenes with Gary Oldman too? And so I just must have said another couple of stupid things, and he kind of sighed and looked at me and he says, yeah, so we have a very important fight with Harrison Ford. Do you think you can do it? And then, of course, the little bird in my mind says, shut the fuck up and just say yes. I said, yes, absolutely, absolutely can do it. That for me, that was a 6 months plus work. I mean, any actor, I mean, those were the days, right? Until we got to the fight. And it come to find out that several actors had turned that down because what they were hearing was, if you clip Mr. Ford, or if you cause the production to shut down, that's a so many $1 million a day event.
Yeah.
And a couple of the actors actually turned the role down for that reason. And I was excited. I was excited. I get to fight with Mr. Ford, with Indiana Jones, baby. You know, so I sat around, basically did my stuff, you know, wiped frame, as they say, wiping frame. That was my thing. It was our kind of joke between the guys, wiping frame left, wiping frame right. Okay, so when on the day of the fight, Mr. Peterson remembered my name because I was really getting into it. Mr. Ford was getting into it. He was so wonderful. You know, when you shoot a fight scene, you shoot a wide. And then you come in mid cowboys, you know, cowboys, they call it cowboy belt. You know, your frame is cowboy belt to hat. And then they'll come over shoulder. They'll do close-ups and come over the shoulders. Now, when they're coming over the shoulder of Mr. Ford, in other words, they're not seeing that it's Mr. Ford and fighting me. Could have been anybody. Could have been his stand-in. I just remember he was there and he was right off screen. He was giving me an eye line so that my look to him would work on the reverse as well. And I remember him like a cheerleader. Oh, that's it, Andy. Throw that left. Throw that. God, great. Now take the gun. Put it out. Yep. I'm going to smack it. There you go. He was absolutely wonderful. I'll never forget that. Never forget that. And I will also never forget that when I went to the premiere of K-19. Ravili Syanov, a Russian actor, friend of mine, invited me. And I remember after the movie, sort of making my way through the crowd. And when I was about some 10 feet away from Mr. Ford, he turns, and mind you now, well, how many years had gone by? Goodness, had to be 5 at least, maybe longer. Forgive my memory on the dates, but it was a long time. Turns over, looks at me, and says, "Andy," and I thought, this dude is just, I love this guy. I love this guy. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
That's cool. Another fact or fiction for you. You prefer to do all your own stunts in all your roles?
In as much as I can. I won't be silly. I won't do stupid stuff. I won't get in the way of my stuntman, of my double, and I will always give them props. And say that were it not for them, and let me do so now. John Alden, for instance, who incidentally was Harrison Ford's double on Air Force One. John Alden doubled me on another 48 Hours, and does that amazing jump through the movie screen. Now they rehearsed it, and yes, the screen was going to be scored, and so he would blow through it with the bike, no problem. But the one thing they hadn't anticipated was that on the day when we're shooting, that camera, that projector light would be in his face, and it was. And he said he couldn't, and the aisles were as thin, if you remember. I mean, a thin, very narrow movie aisle. This was a real movie house on Broadway in Los Angeles, and here he is bouncing through that. Oh, there's that damn light, and lands it perfectly, zigs and zags, and goes right out the lobby. Oh my. Mm. Big props to John Alden, and thank you, John, for making me look good. Thank you, brother.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, before we dive into the Wishmaster, I have got a video submission here from a very big Wishmaster fan who wants to say hello to you, Andy. Okay. Here we go.
Thank Bubba.
What do you want to say to Andrew Divoff?
Yes.
What do you want to say to Andrew Divoff?
Happy birthday.
Oh,
What do you want to ask Andrew Divoff about the Wishmaster?
Yes.
What do you want to ask him about the Wishmaster?
Your wish.
Is what?
My granted.
Your wish is my granted.
Yes.
Is the Wishmaster one of your favorite villains?
Yes.
What does the Wishmaster say?
Your wish is granted.
All right, Bubba, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing that.
That was my brother Jeremy, big Wishmaster fan.
God bless him, brother. God bless him, man. Yeah, I got something for Jeremy. I got a couple of somethings for Jeremy.
Thank you. He would definitely love that.
That's
would love
beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Justin.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. The Wishmaster is probably the role that you're best known for, playing the evil Jinn in Wishmaster. How did you land the role as Wishmaster?
I think it kind of goes back to Graveyard Shift, believe it or not. John Esposito, who took that story, the short story that it was, and expanded on it, wrote it, got a chance to work with me and meet me on Graveyard. He reached out to Robert Kurtzman. I found out, subsequently after meeting Robert and Robert telling me, John speaks highly of you, and said, and how it ever came into his mind that Danson would be the guy to wear 60 pounds of practical makeup. I have no idea, but I just I think Robert actually was having a hard time convincing the studio that I was the guy. And at that time, mind you, Justin, I didn't even have a voice for the guy. I didn't. Were we going to go British? Were we going to do what were we going to do? And I just kind of sort of serendipity. The very first night was that night in the cowl, where so Robert, we got the makeup on and the lighting. We knew what the lighting was going to be, and he wanted to see it on set in the lighting, and we did that. And he said, "Okay, for now, why don't you go back to your trailer and get in front of your mirror, work the mask, articulate it, make sure you know how it moves and how much you have to do under there to make it move." And so it sort of came out of. Now, I had tried earlier in the day to eat solid food, and it was so uncomfortable to then go into the makeup chair and have them pick pieces of sort of archaeological sort of digested material, not quite digested, didn't even make it that far, out of between my mask and my own skin. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. And so I immediately asked if I could, for the evening, because it was a long day, I wanted milkshakes, I wanted protein shakes, just something to keep me going, give me energy, and so forth. I remember then sitting in front of the mirror and sort of just grumbling, just sort of clearing my throat, and I spoke. I was speaking some of the lines, and I realized that the milk product, this sort of, and forgive me for getting explicit here, I realized that by not clearing the phlegm out of my throat, that it actually it enriched the voice, the timbre of what was coming out. And so I practiced a couple of the lines, including one of my favorite little sort of lines, phrases, stanzas in the movie, where he says, "Run, insect, run until those you will, what you will," etc. So I thank you. And so I hit upon that, just really serendipity, coincidence. And what a beautiful coincidence that was. And so from that day on, it was bring on the milkshakes, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Milkshakes and jelly beans. Jelly beans, who knew?
I was going to say, I heard that the Wishmaster has a sweet thing when it comes to
Yes.
chocolates and
Yes,
jelly
indeed.
beans. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, and the chocolates, of course, and jelly beans also contain whey, and so they helped enormously to sort of keep that thing grumbling. I liken it to an exhaust pipe in a car that has holes in it versus one that's brand new. Pretty much,
Mhm.
I mean that. Again, here we go. But the phlegm, it coats all of the spaces where sound might otherwise escape.
Mhm. What was the makeup process like on Wishmaster? How many hours were you in the chair to get all the makeup and the appliances and the whole? Because you had like those little tentacles that were moving that had, I guess they had. I mean, it just looked like such a. I don't want to say cumbersome, but it looked like a very timely. Like it took a long time for you to get in that gear.
It did indeed, and it was so I think the face. Well, there was the cowl that went on first, and got glued down and put into place, and the cowl came to just below the chin here, and then there was the lower lip part of the chin. There was the upper lip. There was the nose. There were two sort of cheek prosthetics, the forehead, and of course, before the forehead could go on, we had to get the contacts in because it was so hard to get the eyes wide enough open to get those in otherwise. So that was a lesson we learned. First time, 4 hours and 20 minutes. We got that down to a skippy 3 hours and 25, and then would as good directors, cinematographers do, they'll look at a script and say, okay, today how can we minimize that time and make the most of what we're going to shoot, and so they might not do the whole outfit, the cowl and so forth. There was also an RC motor on my back that articulated these tendrils. Yeah, it got down to about on a quick day, it got down to about just under 3 hours.
Was it difficult to work through all that makeup as far as to articulate and speak?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Imagine having like 10 very strong rubber bands wrapped around the bottom of your jaw and the top of your head, and then try to open your jaw. And, yeah, it was an elastic prison, if you will. And indeed, you had to over, the thing an actor never wants to hear. You have to over exaggerate. What? Yeah. So yeah. Sure enough. And when that makeup was on, I understood exactly what they were talking about, and I would that sitting in front of the mirror and doing the articulating and doing all of that was part of that process, and learning that, oh my God, man. It only moved that much, and I was stressing it that much. Yeah, it was a trip.
Well, you got to work with the who's who of from the horror genre in Wishmaster: Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, Angus Scrimm did a voiceover.
Yes, he did.
Reggie Bannister was
Reggie
in there.
Bannister, yes, indeed.
George
Joe
Buck
Pilato.
Flowers, Joe Pilato.
Buck Flowers. Oh man.
And you got to kill them all.
Yeah. Not something I really, honestly, Justin, not something not a feather I put in my cap. I just, interestingly enough, one of the photographers that had us in the room all together asked the question, well, if there was going to be like a monster, like an all-out brawl, who would win? And I mean, come on, dude. It was my first introduction to Tony Todd, and Tony, of course, in Tony, typical Tony style, says, "Oh, here we go. Yeah. We're not going to do that." And I look over and I'm hearing them, and then Robert and Kane and everybody kind of spoke up and said, "Yeah, no, we all do our own thing. We're here to support a story, and basically the new monster on the block." And I have nothing but affection for all of them, and to this day, big thanks.
Yeah. Well, Wishmaster was executive produced by Wes Craven. Did you get to meet Wes Craven? Was he on the set
I got to meet him. It was kind of it was a bit of a Stephen King meeting. Very quick, very brief. I got to get a picture with him, and so I tell people, yeah, this is when Wes had invited me down to the university, and we were hanging, but that's a lie. No, it was a quick photograph. Smile, nice to meet you. That he had much bigger fish to fry than this young sort of pollywog monster.
Well, I mean, it certainly looked. It has to be so much fun to play like the big bad in a movie like Wishmaster, because it looked like you were having so much fun, especially here, but also it looked like you had a lot of fun in the sequel too. How
Yes,
much fun is it to just be like you're the big bad?
Oh, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And the one thing that I do remember from it was using the accent, being able to use the accent and have the voice, and just have this monster come alive through the voice, and it yeah, like I mean, who wouldn't get giddy about that, and putting all of this big old Halloween costume on, and getting to be this badass dude who's just an evil trickster, and an evil trickster because most people don't see it coming. Make a wish, okay. Well, I mean, making a wish is one thing, interpreting it is quite another, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the deal.
Exactly. Any trepidation on doing Wishmaster 2? Again, fear of being typecast is now like a horror. You were the bad guy, but any fear of being typecast is like the horror guy now?
No fear of that. No fear of that. I absolutely loved the idea of doing a sequel, and love the idea. I love the idea so much of bringing this monster back, because people got a kick out of him. And he had fun with people. I mean, in the movie, he had fun with people, and I just and it is my reason for, conversely, for not having done the sequels. I just felt that that they weren't paying due respect. Sorry, to the people who had brought the monster that far. I just felt that there needed to be a bit more, really, the special effects, just the love of this sort of evil character, and the weird things that he could do, the magic that he could do. I will mention that I wrote with a friend, Russell Gannon. I wrote number 3, and I presented it, and it had a lot of specials. It opens at the United Nations building, and although there are no gargoyles on that building, in my story there are, and of course the gargoyles right off the bat come to life, and they're crawling down the building, and they come in and they wreck holy shiat in the party, in this sort of gathering, this soiree that we're having, and it gets livelier, shall we say, from there. That's the kind of thing that I would have expected.
That was actually going to be my next fact or fiction about you writing the screenplay for part 3.
Yes, fact. Yeah.
Yes. Too bad that didn't happen.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. I still love the monster, whether or not it's me playing him. And again, it goes back to the writer. I think Peter Atkins and Jack Sholder did show that affection and that sort of love that goes back to when they must have been kids, sneaking around to get a fix of their own horror, addiction. And I'll leave it at that. And I wish they would bring the series back. I hope that they do, and I would happily participate in it or support it from afar if it merited it. Yeah.
You mentioned Jack Sholder, who wrote and directed Wishmaster 2.
Yep.
Of course, all of us know him also from directing Alone in the Dark and A Nightmare on Elm Street too. How was Mr. Sholder to work with?
Wonderful, wonderful, and a polyglot in his own right. He was wonderful to work with. It was wonderful. We were invited for the second year in a row. Wishmaster was invited to the Brussels Film Festival, and I was lucky enough to to be able to go over there with Jack, who spoke French and was able to speak it with the crowd fluently. And so I was in awe of the way he handled his interviews, and I was a lot more shy. And oddly enough, I was shy with my French, and I to this day it's kind of weird. So I spend my days now, my free time, not a whole lot of that. I spend my free time just sort of doing my languages, practicing my languages. Yeah.
What are some of your fondest memories from Wishmaster and Wishmaster 2?
Some of my fondest memories would be scaring the hell out of the crew. And I mean, I'd be in full garb, and I'd walk up to somebody who was having a conversation. I'd be standing. I would see the other person, and they wouldn't say anything. They'd be cool. Then I'd lean closer and closer, and I'd say, "Boo." It would freak them out. I got a big kick out of that. I think to this day, working with Buck in that first scene was absolutely memorable. It was memorable. Of course, Reggie was there that night, and Reggie, as I sit here, Reggie is not. 10 years ago, I could throw a stone and hit his house, but these days I'd have to walk the stone over and drop it on his porch. But it's literally a walk away from where I am. So much love to Gigi and Reggie. They're about to celebrate a 20th anniversary, and they're going to do it here.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
And as far as number two, well, two things. Let me go back to 2-1 to the first one, to Wishmaster. It was invited to the Sitges Film Festival. Now I as I had mentioned before previously, I studied at the University of Barcelona, and I still have lifelong friends, good friends from Barcelona, from up the coast, Calella. And can you imagine how wonderful it is? What would this have been? I guess 20 years later almost, to come back to one of your hometowns and to have your friends sitting in the audience while you introduce the film in Catalan, in the local language. As I told you, that nomadic thing, that thing about cultures and being able to, even if you only immerse a toe in it, at least you've immersed that, and you've tried, you've gone for it. I'll never forget that. That was a wonderful moment to be able to invite them again. It was almost that moment of seeing the sort of look of astonishment and acceptance and pride in the looks of my friends. The same look I saw in my father's face, and I must say the Wishmaster 2, working with Tiny. Rest in peace, big brother. Tiny Lister was so wonderful, and he came up to me and he said, and forgive me, I will quote as closely as I can. And he said, "Brother Andrew, I don't play the bitch for nobody. I don't play bitches, but I'm gonna do it for you." We became fast friends after that. I would always give him a big hug, and he would always, when he would see me at a convention, he would stand up, give me a big hug. Beautiful man. I'm so happy and proud of him that he was able to, for instance, Fifth Element, to bring his acting force to bear. And I must say, I have been lucky enough to see a snippet of some work that Tiny did with a good friend of mine, Terry Kaiser, and it's both of them were absolutely amazing, and they have this back and forth dialogue that goes on for goodness 10-15 minutes, and it's absolutely wonderful. I can't tell you what it is. I'm not allowed to, but I'm hoping that very soon it will be finished and out for us to enjoy. Absolutely splendid.
That's awesome.
Never
I know-
forget Tiny.
Yes. Now, I never got to meet Tiny, but I have met Terry Kaiser. Great guy. Love
Yeah.
Terry Kaiser.
He is.
Well, speaking of conventions, now that you've been embraced by horror fans as one of our favorite villains, what's your experience been like meeting fans at conventions and whatnot?
Wonderful. It's wonderful. I don't put up any barriers, and I must say very few of the actors at the conventions I've been to do. I love meeting the fans. I love the fact that everybody, when we first started, I think last April, to get back into the convention thing, and people were very conscious of the fact that although they may not like wearing masks, they were very respectful of all the guests at these conventions, and of course I say, no, you're good. Take your mask off. You're good. Let's go ahead. You're here to take a picture. You're not here to take a picture with a bandito. Who's that dude behind the mask? Could be anybody. So it's wonderful to meet the fans. It's wonderful to get that immediate, again, that satisfaction for them and satisfaction for us, the guests, who get to hear. And I mean, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have families come up with their kids who've seen Toy Soldiers, and I'm really truly amazed at that. It blows my mind, and so I love the conventions. I absolutely do.
Any upcoming convention appearances you want to mention?
I'm heading out to Detroit at the end of this month, and looking forward to that. Been a long time. I was in Detroit quite a while ago. Different thing. I was actually getting operated on. A long story short, turns out I was diagnosed with skin cancer on Lost, and that so my thing was originally production wanted the patch on the left eye. And at that time, I had this sort of this carcinoma, this basal cell. And I said, well, and I didn't know that it was that. I just knew that it was taking a while to heal. And so I said, well, no, don't you think we should put the patch on the other eye? I mean, because if it's that bad there, what's under the patch? It must be even more awful. So anyway, sorry, I'm blabbing on.
Well, you mentioned Lost. I totally missed out on that whole phenomena, which, I mean, Lost was a cultural phenomena, but I know you had a pretty memorable role on that series. The third character that you portrayed to wear an eye patch, I think that's where you've been typecast. Not the villain, not the horror guy, the eye patch guy.
Right.
But what was it like being part of just a worldwide phenomenon?
Absolutely wonderful. First of all, I have to tell you, we did shoot on Oahu in the islands, in the jungle, and there is absolutely no question that the spirit of the Hawaiian people was part of that. Was part of the just the vibe that came across in that series in Lost, and their take on it. I mean, here we go back to the writers. My goodness, man. What a team of writers! What a team of guys who could put stuff together. And I can't imagine what it would be like for them to come in each morning and look up at the board and think, "Oh wow, okay, we need to get that character to that point. How are we going to do that?" I can't even imagine it. But it was absolutely wonderful, and to be able to be on in such a beautiful space and place, and be able to portray this odd, almost like a fallen demigod to me. When they asked me, the producers asked me, well, So what do you think when absolutely nobody had heard or knew what this thing was about? They asked me, they said, well, so what do you think this is about? And I just blurted out, I said, avatars and demigods. And they kind of looked at me and they just kind of nodded. And, okay. That was kind of odd, but that was my answer, and in a way that is kind of what it became.
Very cool. To what do you owe your longevity in show business to?
Goodness gracious, I would. I'm honest. I've never thought about that, Justin. I other than preparing, being prepared, being ready. Just I would say, gosh, it would all have to come down to the mindset. I think if you're at peace with yourself, knowing your faults and your how shall I put it, knowing where you are likely to sort of blow up, just have a bad day, and then working on recognizing that might be a signpost coming up in the road soon, and then learning how to chill. I think the important thing you mentioned, that perhaps, for instance, the method acting thing can be stressful on everybody. I carry my stress, and it's my stress, and I believe that it's mine to carry and mine to take through, and I just couldn't imagine imparting that or making someone else share in that who shouldn't be sharing in it, who doesn't deserve to share in it. So I have to be very aware of that, and then I just think I'm happy, Justin, with where I am, and I'm happy with where I may be tomorrow. I'm happy with the roles that could bring, and those are new challenges, those are new things, new learning experiences for me. And so I think, as I say, the mindset plays a big role in that. And thank you. That question implies that wow, that I've been around for a bit, and intend to be for another little bit.
There you go. 113 rolls down, 113 more to come. Right. There we go.
Grow on. There you go.
Well, something that I found out about you that I think is really freaking cool is your brewing company. Tell us about it and where people can go and learn more about it.
Oh, thank you. It's where I am tonight. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna lean out of a screen for a second. Forgive me. I'm gonna grab a charger here just in case.
Sure. And just so you guys watching at home know, the two links in the description are for Andrew's brewing company. Check that out. And he's also doing a GoFundMe. Go and check that out and support that. Those are the first two links in the description.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, so that's Three Marm Brewing is kind of it's a dream. It's a dream come true. The flagship ale for Three Marm is Gin's Hellebrew. And the Gin's Hellebrew, I was invited out to Colorado a while back, about, goodness, has to be now, going on 8 years. I was invited to pour wine. They had there was a cheese and wine festival, and a local winemaker had come up with a Malbec, and they called it Gin's Malbec. And would I come out and pour it for charity? I said absolutely, I would. It supported the local children's hospital. So I went out and I was pouring that, and this gentleman came up to me and he said, the Wishmaster needs to have his own beer. This gentleman was Adam Drager, and we are friends to this day. Adam Drager is not a brewmaster, he is a master brewer. And he has been kind enough to share his experience with me and his knowledge and his insight. And anytime that I come up with a beer recipe, as I did with the Gin's Hellebrew, he said, what's your favorite beer? And I said, well, I like Belgians. And he said, okay, cool. I like Belgians too. He said, what are some of your favorite spices? And immediately my mind went into sort of Wishmaster mode. gin mode. And I thought, well, if I was going to make a beer for the gin, it would have to have lime. And the reason for the lime is that lime is a Persian fruit. The first ever lime tree grew in Persia. And so every subsequent lime tree and lime is a Persian lime. Because of its DNA, its origin, and then it would also have to have roasted habanero. It would have to have the heat, and of all the peppers, I mean, I like the red, I like the green, but that orange color is such a beautiful color. That almost like the light you see coming through a salt lamp, you know. And by the way, that if I may say so myself, and I will. What the hell? Gin's Hellebrew is a damn fine beer. It's a damn fine Belgian. We have others. I have a new Golden State Ale, and I kind of I love doing the artwork. I do the artwork. I do the mock-ups for a friend of mine who was an erstwhile artist for Marvel Comics in the UK. His name is Gavin Rodriguez. Rodriguez on the end with an S, not a Z, so Portuguese. He is an amazing artist, and he is responsible for my labels. We have a sort of a tongue-in-cheek pumpkin ale. It's called Patchkin, and of course he's wearing Patchy's garb from Lost, and he's got a pumpkin head with a patch on one eye, and he's standing in a pose that you would swear is reminiscent of Jason. And the artwork again is beautiful. I think if you go to maybe to 3marmbrewing.com, and I'll send you there for that to see the artwork, to check out the labels, but also the top story in the 3marmbrewing.com is about our GoFundMe, and you were kind enough to mention it. Thank you. So our GoFundMe, I'm essentially, my challenge, I call it the Pink Tutu Challenge. My challenge is to raise $10,000. And 5,000 of that will go toward my payroll for my crew here, who is stuck with me through all of this. I didn't qualify for any of the, I guess, I don't know. I guess my money went to the Lakers or whatever. I don't know. I didn't qualify for payroll protection, so I want to take care of them. And then the other 5,000 will go to 5 charities, including for breast cancer. I'm supporting Barbells for Boobs. It's a wild name, but what they support, and the fact that they support lower middle class families in that fight, I think was, for me, is a beautiful thing. Smile Train, because I told you I was in Detroit for a while. I went out to Detroit to see to be operated on by Dr. Ian Jackson, who took care of this, and he told me, he said, you know what, go ahead and thank you. He said, go ahead and whenever, don't pay me back, because the surgery, the insurance didn't cover it all, and I wanted to cover it. And he said, just give to Smile Train. Smile Train is another one of those charities that I'm supporting. Also, my local search and rescue, Mountain Meals on Wheels, and Operation Provider, a local food and clothing bank. Cool. Yeah. So check this out. May I just sort of trip out here for a second? If you look in that disc under the gins and then the Hellebrew, in that disc, I designed that. I drew that in the makeup chair, and I thought, you know what, the gin should have his own coat of arms. And if you look at it closely, and follow from the top and go around to the right, there's a D. And if you then follow from the top and go around to the left, that's a J. The I is in the middle, and the 2 ends are the wings. And so that spells gin, and that's his coat of arms. And so that's this is a beer that I still pour for charity, and I do charity events up on the mountain as well. And I'm a lucky guy. My community is a wonderful community, mountain community, San Bernardino Mountains, Lake Arrowhead, Crestline, Big Bear. That community has been very supportive of us, and we appreciate them. Thank them for that support, and thank all of you out there for checking this out. I truly appreciate it.
Do you know what states that that you have distributors for?
So right now, I am literally, man, if I could be called a small brewery, that would be big. that'd be big for me. I'm a nano brewery, and so really, right now I keep it in house. I do feel now the gin's Hellebrew is not everybody's taste. It is not, as I put it, it is not for the faint at palate. It bites back, but it makes a beautiful bloody beer. And if you like your whitefish, your chicken makes a wonderful marinade. Mix it in with like a marmalade, your favorite spices, some dill, some crushed pepper. But I believe my new ale, my Golden State Ale, is the one that I'm going to take trans-border, outside of the state. Comes in at 5%, beautiful, crisp ale, just very refreshing. And what people, they will recognize in the, so my description of the beer is brewed with blah, 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 and corn. And it comes in at 5%, and it is actually, it is reminiscent of beers that we're all familiar with. The Stellas, the Modelos,
Cool. And again, I just shared the links to 3marmbrewing.com and to the GoFundMe. So if you guys want to hear more, any other information about 3Marm, it's on the website. And please go to the GoFundMe and help support.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that. And when you get a chance, guys, come on in and let me pour you a beer. Yeah.
Imagine the gin himself pours you some of that gin Hellebrew. Wow.
I love it, man. I love it.
Jeez. Do you have time for a couple of viewer questions?
I do indeed.
Okay, awesome. I had a couple of people wanted me to ask you about, apparently there's a longer version of Another 48 Hours. The Walter Hill version was like well over 2 hours. Paramount booted him out of the editing room. They did their own cut, then did another cut just before the film came out to knock it down to 90 minutes. Were you aware of any of this? And
I was made aware of it after the fact, not during filming or even at the wrap party, but I could tell that there was the chemistry, the feel, the vibe something was going on, and I imagine that was it. I mean that's what had people sort of back on their heels, some people, and others up on their toes. I haven't seen it. I would love to. Is there any word about whether it's gettable?
Not that I'm aware of.
Please, if you should ever find out, please let me know.
Oh, I will. I'll definitely let you know.
I would
no doubt
love
about that.
to see Walter's cut, man. Are you kidding?
Oh yeah. My buddy Craig said he actually met you at one point, and you told him about a silver ring that you made.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about the silver ring?
Sure. Yeah. So the silver ring was something that I made. Really, I was affronted. I felt affronted anyway, whether I was or not. Yeah, that it's up to the beholder. For the longest while there, I would trade pewter versions of this ring for the Wishmaster figure, the action figure, because I was treated, how should we say, rudely by Mr. McFarlane, and not what I would call an honorable human. Wonderful artist, truly a wonderful artist. But and so my thing was not to sign those figures after my encounter with Mr. McFarlane, and so I decided to. It drove me. It gave me. I was impassioned to make my own version of me. The deal was supposed to have been that I would participate in sales and percentages and even in the artwork, and none of that was. None of that mattered. What mattered was the complete lack of honor, really.
Right.
And so I made this ring, and I'm wondering where you might be able to get a shot of it or see it. But it is 2 ounces of silver. I spent some 200 hours sculpting in jeweler's wax, green wax. First time ever I had sculpted in that, and I would spend, I would spend 8 to 10 hours a day and look at the thing, and I wanted to cry because to me, after all that time, nothing had changed. I would pick away a little green wax over there, a little bit over there, and then I'd look at it, nothing's happening. And then, of course, after a while, and with patience and perseverance, there's the gin, and it's a 360 ring. And in the back, I left a point in the back of it that when you close your fist, it actually sort of nicks you, it bites you. And that my point there was that with all of my good fortune, with all of the beauty that I've experienced, the cultures, all of that, there's still don't forget that there is pain, and though you may not be feeling it at the moment, others are. And so it was a bit of a, how would I put it, an empathy point, if you will, an empathy dagger point.
That's really interesting. That's really cool. My buddy Tori would like to know, is there a particular film of yours that you are the most proud of?
I would I would have to say Toy Soldiers. I would have to say it gave me the opportunity in an odd way, but a beautiful way, to come around full circle. To those who may have at one time bullied me, and here was the language that I was being bullied for. Here was the culture. Here were the gestures and the nuances of and they were on screen, and I had an opportunity to portray this character, Luis Cali, and I am very, very proud of that. And then I for the reasons that I've mentioned to you, there was another film, proud for a different reason. It was HBO's first film, the first one that they made, and it was called Deadly Voyage. And we talk about a cast, beautiful, wonderful cast. True story, and really they sort of refer to it as a Die Hard on the high seas. Very proud of having worked on that movie. We filmed in Ghana, both in Accra and in Takoradi, and I did learn a bit of the Fanti, Kotsuden, Muhuye, Medasi Pa. So I very much got into that and got into the culture and the people, as poor as they were, where we were filming in the villages, in and around. They were the most giving and the most generous people, among the most generous people that I've ever met. So I was proud that I was in that film and I was able to have that experience.
Very nice. My friend Lopke Vision Films, he said, I had the pleasure of meeting Andrew this past 4th of July at Mad Monster Party, Arizona, and he was very nice. Thank you for the signed Wishmaster poster.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a wonderful crowd. And can you imagine, on a day where it's 117 degrees outside, the power goes out for all of us, all of us fancy, precious people. It was a trip, and I mean, we were staying at a hotel where that was near what I thought was a mall. Well, in fact, it was a sort of it reminded me of the Grove in Los Angeles, and restaurant after restaurant, beautiful restaurants, beautifully appointed. But here I was walking around in 110 plus. I had my water with me, but I was looking for sundries. I was looking for like a market, like a, I don't know, Walmart, someplace where I could go in and get some stuff, get some toiletries, etc.
Right.
And nothing at all. And then you get to that halfway point where you say, yeah, you should probably turn around right about now. So I did notice not too many people out and about walking. So went back, but it was wonderful. A wonderful crowd. Thank you for the kind words, and I look forward to getting back there in the winterish, rainy time.
My friend Shannon would like to know, are she says that she's heard that you are you care about the welfare of animals. Are you a vegan?
I am not. I'm not a vegan. I do care about the welfare of animals. I know that's contradictory. I do include. I would say that 40%, and I'm working to build it up. 40% of my diet is vegetarian, and I do that for reasons of health, just to keep everything flowing, if you will. Um, but yes, as far as giving to animal charities and PETA, and making sure that there are as few, or let me put it positively, as many no-kill shelters as possible. I'm very interested in that.
My friend Dan would like to know, how was your experience working on The Rage, which is a personal favorite of his?
Oh, well, thank you, Dan. That was a trip. That was a trip for me. The trip was learning Ukrainian, learning a bunch of the dialogue in Ukrainian, and making sure. As a matter of fact, it was my friend Ilya Volov who put it down on tape for me, so that I could basically parrot it. It was so heavy, man. We filmed in Crestline, Ohio. Oddly enough, I am now in Crestline, California. We filmed in Crestline, Ohio, in the heat. I remember, flinging around buzzards, beating people with buzzards. Just the bloodiest set I think that I have ever been on, and it was so wonderful to see Robert Kurtzman in his element. His first film, away from KNB, now in his own studio. He had bought an old bowling alley and turned it into a studio, and it was a trip. It was a trip, brother. It was again, being the nomad, being out there, meeting new people, having that experience, going out, and then getting back into character, into costume. It was. I mean, being, like I say, Tony Dodson is the gentleman who built those sets and bloodied them up and did the whole thing, and just walking through them. I mean, they were solid sets. I mean, and it was puke worthy, man. It was puke worthy walking through those sets and seeing everything, and the innards and the gizzards, and it was a trip, but a well remembered.
All right, last two more questions. From my friend Uncanny Spirits, he says, he asks, what was it like working on Command and Conquer Red Alert 3 with both Tim Curry and Peter Stormare?
Oh man, it was wonderful. Both of those gentlemen, truly gentlemen. Peter Stormare, very thoughtful. I mean, when you see the roles that he plays, I wouldn't. They're on the dimmer side. Ones the memorable with Fargo, certainly, but just a sweet, genuine guy, and Tim Curry. What a wit! What a wit! And what a beautiful person. Very. If you were lucky enough, I would say, to be able to sit at a really, it was a picnic table outside the studio. I believe we were at Formosa. And just to be able to sit and spend that half hour with him, and his reminiscences and talking, and his insights and his observations, I was a lucky guy. And then of course we were playing Russians, and in this odd sort of world where you're not necessarily acting with each other, acting in front of a green screen, perhaps, and being told, okay, this is what's happening here now, and then now you're going to look over here. But I mean, what a beautiful experience, and I'm luckier for having met both of them.
Tim Curry, Yeah, just fantastic. And it's Peter Stormare too. Both of them fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. My friend Sam asks, have you ever caught yourself speaking one language but with the accent of another?
Ooh, how dare you ask that insightful question? Yes, yes, I have. Yes, I have. And recently, I can share very little of it, but um, I do a character in Call of Duty Kravchenko, and I do remember, and now it didn't happen in the room recording, but I had some German to speak, and I wanted to make sure that the person that I was speaking with in that scene, who was also a German, understood that I spoke German fluently. And what was interesting, so the Russian accent comes up, the German comes out, and then all of a sudden there's a German accent with the rest of the Russian dialogue, and I'm looking at myself. I'm standing in front of the mirror, and I'm looking at myself. I'm going, dude, did you really just do that? And I had to step away. And so yes, the answer is yes, but I had to step away, and I'm thinking, I'm freaking. I'm thinking, man, and you know, if you overthink something, it's bound to happen again. Luckily, it did not. I kept away from that pit trap.
Any upcoming projects you wanna mention before we call tonight?
You know, I'm auditioning a lot. Thankfully, thank you to my agents, Alan Mills and Dominic Mancini. I'm hoping I got to play a very cool character, a guy named Al Howard in the new Perry Mason in the HBO. Let me just say, I hope it comes back, brother. I hope it comes back. What a beautiful thing it is to not only, you know, do the nomad thing, but then to be transported by wardrobe, by writing, by history, into this era. Earl Stanley Gardner, 1930s LA. That was the Barbary Coast, my man. It was the Barbary Coast. It was, I mean, it was a different world than what it is today. Um, and painted beautifully by production and by the writers. And I must say, let me give a shout out and a thank you to Matthew Reese, who was so kind, so sweet to me, man. I remember the first day in the chair, and he's at the other end of the trailer in his chair, you know, getting the makeup done and all that. And he very thoughtfully looked over and he says, we introduced each other, sat down, doing our thing, and he says, so how are you doing, Andrew? How are you feeling about this? And I said, well, frankly, Matthew, and I'm going to use an expletive here. Forgive me. I'm nervous as shit. And he laughed. He got a chuckle out of that. And he says, we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great time. It's going to go great. So, and it did. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful to work with him. So accomplished and so self-assured in a humble way. It's a beautiful thing to see. So, you know, what do I have coming up next? Brother Justin, I have no idea. No idea, but I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Again, 3marmbrewing.com. That link is in the description. Let me put it in the chat again one more time. Go check out 3marmbrewing.com. Go check out the GoFundMe and help support. So,
Thanks, brother.
yeah, very cool. Let me drop those links here again. There we go, in the chat. Follow those links. And another big shout out to Dominic Mancini for helping to make all this happen from Full Empire Promotions at fullempirepromotions.com. So thank you, Dom. I know he was in the chat here just a little while ago too. But first and foremost, thank you so much, Mr. Divoff, for giving us your time and talking to us about all these great performances of yours.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and time indeed, time well spent. And thank you for being patient with me, and thank everybody out there for tuning in. Cheers.
Yep, right on. Thank you again, sir. Have a great rest of your night. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, Justin. Mine as well. Thank you.
Yeah. And a big shout out to everybody who's still watching. Let me give a couple of shout outs here. Thank you, Turi, for the $20 super chat. Thank you, Lopke Vision Films, for the $5 super chat. Really quick before we go off the air, I'm going to announce my next guest for my next Bloodstream coming out next month. Right now.
Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
Who is that? Is that Justin? Is that Justin Pizowell? If you ever need something, hit me up and I'll be on there with you. God bless you, brother. From Miguel Nunez.
I hit him up, and it's happening. That is August 5th, beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Miguel A. Nunez Jr. So mark your calendars for that.
I'm going to be tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you, man. And again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much, Andrew. Such a pleasure, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Have a great
rest of your evening, guys. Thank you.
You too, sir. Thank you all again for tuning in. It's been a great, really fun chat. Everybody's really excited. Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Good night,
Peace.
brother.
Good night, man. Take care. One more time.
Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
Who is that? Is that Justin? Is that Justin Pizowell? If you ever need something, hit me up and I'll be on there with you. God bless you, brother. From Miguel Nunez.